Hello, my name is Marian Richardson. Welcome to our book corner. Today I'm joined by Lottie and Adom, and we are going to be reading to you from the book that is entitled One Red Cat. The friends are introduced to the Hebrew letters. Let's just jump right in. Lottie's going to begin reading with me today, and after a couple of pages, Lottie has agreed to step out and let Adom come in with the reading, because the majority of this book is about Adom. Right, Lottie? We begin with morning of day one, the meeting introduction. As the friends approached the cabin, their skin felt tingly, their hair and fur on end. Normally, they were filled with excitement and anticipation when coming to this home site of the widow McCarver and her deceased husband, Abraham. The excitement and anticipation they felt today leaned more to the edge of fear. Perhaps not fear, perhaps more dread, as if there were impending doom. They were here early this morning because of a request from the widow. Something is going on within the cabin. Her weak voice quivered as she went on. I've seen lights at night. The door has been left unlocked and ajar. I've found odd tins of sardines scattered around the property. Her nose wrinkled, indicating that not only was this last infraction odd, but stinky. Stinky. Can you check things out? I don't believe I'm expecting visitors. Later, when discussing the clues, the friends brainstormed possible culprits. Perhaps a vagrant has settled in and set up house for the summer, Yobel suggested. Oh, yes, Halou built upon that idea. Someone who has a polished palate for fishies. Or has no respect. They should clean up after themselves. Mimetes wiped his hands together in disgust. Enough guessing. Let's go see for ourselves. The rational one, Corderito, spoke up. It was those two conversations, the first with the widow and the second with the newly appointed detectives, which led to their appearance at the retreat that day. This is called detection. Sure enough, the culprit had left a breadcrumb trail up to the cabin porch. Mimetes had brought a bag for litter in which he collected specimens as both evidence and to clean up the grounds. He felt both diligent and indignant that someone had the nerve to litter their playground. Each climbed the step, one first, then the other. Based upon their level of braveness, each peeked their head around the door frame, hoping to find nothing, nobody, and certainly no bodies. First, left, they peered. Next, right, they peered. Then up, then down. All eyes were facing forward when from behind, outside the door, came a chipper voice.
Mazel tov, mates.
It rang out.
Boker tov.
And
Shalom, shalom to you.
You can only imagine the squeals and the caterwauling that exploded from the party of 8 that became wedged in the narrow doorframe. You scared them, Adom. Goodness me, pal, Mimetes gasped, mustering the only response he could gather.
Oh, vey.
Have I interrupted you? The surprised visitor inquired with another round of strange-sounding words, unique and unknown to the party. From their positions within the entrance, some sitting, others leaning against the frame, a few laid out on all fours, the friends surveyed the source of this question. Here before their eyes, in flesh and fur, somewhat short in stature, but with a confident stance, stood what appeared to be something of the feline breed. The most resounding features were the pointed ears, which seemed to rotate like radar atop its head, the tips of its ears and tail were black as though they had been dipped in ink. Except for a few white patches on the chest and face, it donned an otherwise sleekish, reddish coat of fur. Seeming to sense their confusion, the figure before them straightened its back, dropped its arm to its side, clicked its feet into formation, all in one sharp motion. Just like that. It then slowly slid its left leg out and back into the arch of the right foot, began a slow bow which began at the hips, presenting its nose, whiskers, and floor to the puddle of friends. As their eyes met, the creature began a twirl of the paw. I think it started up here. He began a twirl of the paw, sweeping and circular, that started above the head and ended open-faced just at about eye level of its astonished audience.
Adom Chatul of the wildcat family, genre caracal.
He introduced himself as they all rose. Again I say,
Shalom, shalom, shalom.
he produced the grin of a Cheshire cat, wide, bright-eyed, with canines sparkling.
Did Bubba send you?
The next section is called Explanation, and I think we need an explanation, don't we, boys and girls? As you might suspect, the dialogue that followed was tense. Mimetes, still offended by the trash, began. With all respect, Sir Cat, who invited you? Why are you here? And are these yours? He thrust the sack of tins at the black-nosed snout. And who is Bubby? Yobel added. I might as well inquire, he reasoned to himself.
Ah, Nishkeet, Nishkeet.
Adom wiped his brow. Before this becomes a long spiel, can we calm down? I promise I am friend, not foe. Mimetes motioned to the steps on the porch where the 9 of them spread out in less adversarial positions for a session of discovery. Let me begin with Bubby. The cat's tone was sincere. She's the wife of my good friend Abraham. The students who came to study with him called her Bubby, or grandmother, out of affection. Dottie McCarver? Bubby? Helu turned to Naphtali, who turned to Ruach, who looked inquisitively at Teddy. Dottie is Bubby? Lottie looked from Adom to the group of confused pals. Yes, and she invited me for the purpose of reviewing Professor McCarver's archives. And yes, those were placed by me. Here is the letter she sent me late last summer when Bubby extends an invitation for me to stay on the property while conducting research. He reached down and pulled a letter from the black leather satchel lying on the wood-planked porch. I guess it is possible that our dear Dottie, or Bubby, as you call her, forgot you were coming. It has been 9 months since you received that mail, Corderito reflected as he noted the postmark on the envelope. Yes, well, I was in the Galapagos when it arrived, the caracal responded. My second passion is detection and monitoring of the blue-footed booby bird. He looked sheepishly down, dragging his foot across the boards. It's an odd sport for which I must confess is the reason for the sardine tins you've been schlepping around in that bag. Schlepping around. The confrontation. Oh, Mimetes put his hands to his hips and sassed, just a little too cheeky, an unwarranted attitude that he would most immediately regret. And what is your first passion? He cocked his head, finishing with rummaging through dead man's files. Somewhat. Adom lifted a card out of the envelope. He turned it to his audience. Professor of Biblical Hebrew, he read. Oh, they. Corderito hung his head, whispering. The monkey blushed, the color of Adom's fur, sighing a very long, regretful breath as his shoulders slumped in remorse. All eyes were on the professor. How would this guest of the widow react to their friend the monkey's impulsive insult? Surely this encounter had not gone well. The red cat's whiskers twitched as his eyes trained on the little monkey. 2 seconds, blink. 4 seconds, blink. No one breathed. A purr began to rumble out of the cat's gut as the muscles of his larynx vibrated, indicating his approaching words.
I like your chutzpah, brother.
His voice broke the silence. A long, extended whew floated across the breaths released in response. What a fakakta meeting this has become. Adom reached his paw out to Monkey's paw and shook it generously. Let's start over, he grinned sincerely.
Shalom, shalom.
It's good to meet a friend to my dear friend Abraham. All right, we're in a whole new section now called Afternoon of Day 1, the sharing, and this is conversation. It is amazing how quickly the heated conversation cooled into what could be described as a blossoming friendship. Lottie brought refreshments of crackers, cheese, sliced vegetables, and fruit. Adom referred to the snacks as nosh, teasing that he'd never done so much noshing in his life. While they noshed, the gathering got to know each other. They learned that in addition to his desire to review the documents A.Mac had left behind, Professor Chatul had an interest in scouting the bird population of the inlet. He was totally verklempt over the beloved blue-footed booby. Just the mention brought light to his eyes. He revealed that the sardines were an attractant strategically placed in the unlikely case that a flock of boobies would wander through. Had the evidence been found, or even the suspicion of detection, he would have gone into full tracking, monitoring, and data gathering mode. I guess I was foolish to think Blue Feet would travel this far, he confided, but perhaps we can schedule a field day before I depart to investigate local feathered folk for fun fact finding. The native friends shared about themselves too, telling stories of their adventures at the orchard and surrounding grounds. They listed the feasts they had celebrated: Purim, Passover, Sukkot, and Hanukkah, with Shavuot being one they longed to study. They mentioned the biblical characters Job, Esther, and Jonah, which were central to their recent studies. Adom rejoiced with them over the knowledge and understanding that they were gaining. It makes me kvel, he gushed. In turn, Adom told more of his first passion, ancient Hebrew. He explained how he and fellow students had come to Abraham's cabin in the summers to study copies of original texts of God's Word as they delved deep for spiritual meaning and understanding. They're digging deep just like us, boys and girls. All right, the new section is called Translation. That same afternoon, the wise cat discovered a piece of parchment paper in Abraham's Bible. "Ah, here it is," he announced. "It's the Shema that we translated from Hebrew to English along with the transliteration." He held it up as the others began to gather around. "Whoa, hold on there," Yobel brayed. "You just used 2 words there that require an explanation." "Right." Corderito stepped towards the parchment. "I see that your Shema is written in the Hebrew alphabet or Aleph Bet. Kindly identify the terms translate and transliteration for our company." Adom laid the document down and then selected a wooden utensil from a rack on the wall. Using the smoothing tool, he pointed. "These letters are Hebrew." Converting it to English for its same meaning is called interpretation. He slid the tip to the first word on the top right line. "Why begin on the right?" Naphtali questioned. "Because it says here, read Hebrew right to left." Ruach looked down on the page from his position at the table. Adom went on. "These 3 letters, Shin, Mem, and Ayin, combine to mean the English word here. It is interpreted to mean here. Below the interpretation is written the transliteration. Here, English letters that represent the sound of the Hebrew letters are used to show us how the word sounds in Hebrew. Shin says sh. Mem says Ayin is usually considered silent, but here it gives the sound of the O in pot. Put them together and you get Shema." And just for clarification, Halu craned his neck, placing his eyes on level with those of Adom. "What exactly is Shema?" "Of course, pardon me, an innocent glitch, I assure you." Adom's whiskers dropped in embarrassment. "It is a piece of scripture from the book of Deuteronomy in the Old Testament Bible." "Right." Corderito wanted to carry some of the blame for not clarifying this earlier. Jesus quoted the Shema in the New Testament book of Mark. It is a very important prayer to both Jews and Christians in which God commands that we love him with all of our heart, all of our being, heart, soul, and might. Let's take a break and look at this a little closer. We have some time before I need to conduct my evening check on the sardine pots. Adom pulled out a stool and everyone leaned in. "Good plan, Prof." Mimetes fist bumped his new favorite feline. "Good plan," everyone agreed. All right, the next section is called observation. Truth be told, Lottie and the gang were becoming quite attached to this one red cat. His fierce dedication to his trade and second love of the blue-footed ones, the animation of his gestures, the way he waved his hands, tilted his head, positioned his feet, were all quite endearing. How could one resist his facial features, presented with coordination of his eyes, nose, and whiskers? Finally, there was the dual exclamation point of those charming famous ears with their near bionic ability to follow sound, combined with that guttural purr that seemed to rise out of his chest, riding his breath across his tongue and through his lips. Who was this one red cat that had shown up on a trail of sardine tins and crackers? One who got verklempt over blue-footed birds and an ancient alphabet. Indeed, the lot had fallen head over heels for this Adom Chatul. As day one began to draw to a close, what had looked like it would be an oy vey kind of day had become mazel tov in every way. All right, new section, evening of day one, the planning. And this part is called contemplation. As evening approached, Adom grew anxious to investigate the habitats around the McCarver lands. Where might birds be attracted? Where might they find food, water, and nesting sites? He inquired. Mimetes put his hand to his forehead, thinking. There are plenty of trees, seeds, fruit, and shade in the orchard behind the cabin, he offered. Actually, what you might enjoy is the view at Ayin Mitzpor. Lottie placed her finger to her chin and mused. It looms over the briny water below the scenic view of the cliffs. Bubbe and I have met there, where I remember seeing quite a variety of birds at Lookout Point. Oh, the seaside shore might be a candidate for finding nestlings with its bulrushes along the path, Yobel added. Wow, God willing, im Yirtzeh Hashem, we can spot us some birds. Let's do all 3 locations tomorrow. Halu raised his wings in delight. I might even run into some family. Why don't you all run along home? I can check the sights on my own tonight. Let's meet up in the orchard in the morning. Adom jumped from the stool and headed out. The others turned toward home. 2 by 2, they walked along the well-trodden trail. Did anyone hear the prof mention a departure earlier in the day? Mimetes queried. Yeah, I did. Unfortunately, yes. It seems we all did, Corderito assessed. I'm going to miss that one red cat. Mimetes' voice trailed off as tears welled up in his eyes. Now who's verklempt? Lottie patted the little monkey. Everyone sighed. Everyone. This is called the morning of day 2, the sighting. And this is identification. Strolling around the corner of the cabin this cool morning, he had to stop and catch his breath. Adom Chatul had not expected such beauty. The trees were splendid with their cotton candy blossoms. Buzzing bees busied themselves drinking in delicious nectar. Monarchs lighted gently, displaying their bold flamed colored wings. God's creation truly was alive with energy. Baruch Adonai, it makes me kvel, he raised his hands towards the heavens in praise. Boker Tov, shalom shalom, it was Corderito the little lamb who greeted the gathering. Shalom shalom, the others joined in the pleasantries. Welcome to location 1. Mimetes spread his arms, taking in the magnitude of the orchard. Adom grabbed the binoculars from around his neck. I'm ready, team. I've already spotted a dole of motos. Moto? Ruach obviously knew that reference to the mourning dove. I would think a good twitcher like you would ignore common dove. He really had assumed that an ornithologist of Professor Chatul's status would only go for recording rare bird species in his journal. Psalm 50:11, Adom retorted, I know every bird in the mountains. I delight in them all. In that case, Naphtali turned his nose in the direction of the grapevine. Hoopy in the thicket. Lark at 4 o'clock, Yobel sang out. Voices down, Halu reminded them. We are in their space. Let's not disturb their tranquility. I think I just saw a shoe car scramble across the path. Mimetes cupped his hands around his mouth, attempting to soften his volume. Just then a bevy of quail exploded from the underbrush. With whirring wing beats, they flew off in quite a ruckus. I'm very impressed, Adom gave Mimetes a high five. You all seem to be able to identify the native populations well. Let's head up to the lookout and see what we can discover up on the cliffs. At that moment, in the blink of an eye, his ears turned and his head ducked, just at the moment that a bee-eater buzzed past. Whew! Amazing reflexes, Mimetes went in for another 5. You are a bird magnet, my red friend. Everyone giggled as they headed up the steady incline to the cliffs. This is called connection. I marvel that you can excel at two profoundly different interests, Halu commented. His long legs took to the steep path with ease. He flexed his neck, lowering it closer to Adom's astute ears. What are you saying? Yobel queried. That linguistics and birding are different? Naphtali and Yobel turned to each other with snorts as they reacted to the humor. Seems obvious, doesn't it? The little heart stated. Maybe not, little lamb contemplated, winking at Adom. Let's ruminate on this for a moment. I would imagine that the first step to learning a new language whose letters are not familiar would be to learn the shapes, strokes, and uniqueness of each of those letters. Is this correct? He turned to the professor. Correct, Adom nodded. A very similar skill as in identifying the uniqueness of each bird. He and Corderito were in perfect agreement. You learned each letter's name. Remember, you taught us Shin, Mem, and Ayin. The others listened intently. No different than bird names like quail and dove. Once again, a supportive comment. So studying Hebrew requires a lot of the same skills as birding. Yobel raised his eyebrows in the direction of Naphtali. You told us the sounds of those letters, Lottie remembered. I certainly know when it is the doves that are cooing from their perches in the trees. Coo, 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 they call. Correct. This time it was both Adom and the little lamb who confirmed. Learning the voice or sound is a form of affection. Jesus said, "My sheep know my voice." To really acquaint ourselves in both studies, our ears must participate. It was Adom's voice they heard, but it was the twitching of those ears of his that caused them to giggle. Praise ye the Lord, praise ye the Lord from the heavens, praise him in the heights. Adom's stride stopped. His hands flew to the sky. His eyes were fixed on the expanse of sea that had come into view as they arrived at Lookout Point Ayin Mitzvor. The mountains skipped like rams. Nay, my Lord, 'tis my heart that skips in praise of you, he cried, falling to his knees. What a majestic location. How it speaks of the glory of our God Hashem. With precise timing, with wings spread wide, its feathered fingers painting the sky as it soared above, a boalus eagle cut the horizon above the breathless onlookers. Mazel Tov! Well done, my feathered friend, Adom saluted the sky. Not often do I kvel 2 days in a row. Let's just agree that God's Aleph Bet and his creation leave me equally verklempt. Time to nosh! A slight voice seemed to appear from nowhere. It was the widow McCarver with a basket in hand. She laid a cloth on the ground, plates on the cloth, then grub on the plates. Chatter interrupted, enveloping her with the enthusiasm the group could not contain. Okay, their bubby was overwhelmed by their excitement. The noshing calmed them, the fellowship gladdened them, God's kingdom surrounded them. From their vantage point above the sea, they identified a Rupel's warbler on the rocky wall. Adom heard its scratch whistle and metallic trill. Trrrr, it went. On the slopes they spotted a mural of Kretschmar's bunting, which whistled, see, see, see. Scampering around and noshing on what seemed to be a smorgasbord of insects, berries, and seeds, yellow-billed caw scavenged close by. With full hearts and bellies, the adventure seekers were ready to check out the shore. This is called revelation. The little troop of birders headed down from the cliff to the marshy inlet with the reeds and bulrushes. In this environment, they hoped to detect wetland fowl. The birds of the sky nest by the waters. They sing among the branches. Ruach quoted from the book of Psalms relating that it was a favorite of his. As they drew closer to their destination, Adom spoke up. I'll be sorry when the sun sets and I have to depart, he said with a sorrowful tone. Oh, silly cat, Lottie's eyes sparkled. We can do this again soon. The orchard, the cliff, and the shore will always be here for our visits, she assured him. Oh, Maydell, Adom quit walking and looked into her eyes. Tomorrow I depart. You and your friend have become very special to me, but this one red cat must chase 2 blue feet. The Frank, realizing that this reference was to them, circled the two as they stood on the path. But who will teach us more about Hebrew? We were just beginning. Halu's desperate cry was animated across his heartbroken face. He's right, Mimetes joined in. Your passion has become ours. We need you, Prof. Oh, Pumpkiss. Whiskers stood on end and ears at attention. Don't be silly. You are a highly capable team. The learning of letters and sounds will be a challenge, yes, but however, I'm confident in your abilities and am certain you will master those details and more before my return. Capable? Yobel cocked his head and questioned. Confident? Halu swiped the drool from his beak. Master? Mimetes' black dotted eyes grew large. Those and more before I return, came the unwavering response. Now let's get on with the task at hand. We can formulate a plan. This section is called iteration repetition. The way to learn something, I mean really learn it, is by iteration. Adom peered into his binoculars and began scanning the horizon. I practice my sport. I learn where to expect to find things. I predict how they will behave. He lowered the lens. Not just with birds, but with letters and language. Repeating the same acts over and over builds strength. The skill is in knowing minute details, observing patterns and behavior. For example, in the Aleph Bet, several letters look very much alike. To tell the difference between Hey and Chet, or between Kaf, Bet, and Nun takes practice, iteration. In birding, it might be the difference between a gray or green head, an orange or yellow throat, blue or red feet. Adom set his field glasses on the green picnic table while the others situated themselves around him. The benches were a welcoming rest after all the walking. Do you see those purple swamp hen and yellow wagtails out among the reeds? Birds help to balance the ecosystem. There is a balance in the interaction of animals and their environment. These creatures will help pollinate, disperse seed, affect pest control, and bring nutrients into the soil. All of that just by merely existing. I guess there is a reason that on the 5th day God said, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven." In the same fashion, letters must be placed together in a way that they work together to communicate correctly. There are rules for spelling, grammar, and pronunciation. Some Hebrew letters are even only found at the end of words. Hebrew letters do so much more than just spell a word. Each has a numerical value and a symbol. And some are linked to a zodiac sign or a day of the week. The letter IN, whose name is at the lookout, has a value of 70, is represented by the symbol of a human eye, and is tied to the zodiac sign of Capricorn. This is called categorization. The class had been schooled indeed. Their very thorough lesson comparing the Aleph Bet to ornithology had been without argument comprehensive. In later days, a few of the participants might even refer to it as being exhaustive. From their station at the picnic table, the comrades wasted away the remainder of the day, delighting in the companionship of their red-furred chum. They squealed with delight when a flock of black-winged stilts waded through, only to get alarmed and cause a ruckus as they took flight across the marshlands. A crowd of white-throated kingfishers with their large heads and red bills bobbed in and out at the water's edge, while the pygmy cormorants busied themselves in their nests in the shrub. Their dark bronzy green feathers shone as the afternoon sun headed west across the waters. Oh, what an addition this one red cat had made to their list of allies. He had enlarged their territory in 2 categories of knowledge that none had expected before the widow exposed the sardine tins. Soon this one red cat would be off chasing blue-footed booby, leaving the local kids to delve deeply into the highly anticipated quest of the Hebrew language. Adom, Prof. Mimetes stepped out from the table, turned and addressed his buddy. "Tell me, friend, how will we know when you are returning to the orchard grounds?" His eyes sought an answer. A broad grin began to spread across the professor's face as he too rose facing the questioning crowd. The now familiar figure before them straightened his back, dropped his arms to his side, clicked his feet into a V formation, all in one sharp motion. He then slowly slid his left leg out and back into the arch of the right foot, began a slow bow which began at his hips, presenting his nose, whiskers, and eyes to the table of friends. As their eyes met, the creature began a twirl of the paw, sweeping and circular, that started above his head and ended open-faced at just about eye level of his not-so-astonished audience. "Sardine tins will announce my arrival." His response was playful as he presented the grin of a Cheshire cat. Wide, bright-eyed, with white canines sparkling, and turned towards the cabin where he would retrieve his satchel and head out to a world where one red cat loves 2 blue feet. The end, but to be continued with the next book, 2 Blue Feet. Boys and girls, I hope you've enjoyed listening to us read this book, One Red Cat, and I hope that your interest is piqued about the Hebrew alphabet. There's a lot of information in the study guide that is contained in the back of this book. There is a page for each of the Hebrew letters, which includes all of the information, their sound, how to write them, the symbol, everything related to them, and some example words. There's also a section with flashcards that you can either cut out or copy on the copy machine and practice the Hebrew letters. There's also several pages of information, and I'm showing that on the screen right now, that will help you to, like it said, identify the difference between several letters. And some of them are shaped similarly, very unlike our English alphabet. And then there is a page that gives you the vocabulary of Mr. Adom Chatul, which he is quite colorful and has used throughout the book. Also a page to identify all of the birds that were identified in this book. So that will help you to learn something different besides the letters. So you too will learn 2 things. You will have knowledge of the Hebrew letters, information about the Hebrew letters, but then you will also have the knowledge of those birds that we talked about and how to identify them. Some of you might become an ornithologist one day. We thank you for coming and listening, coming to the corner and listening to us read this book. We invite you to come back to the corner soon.